4th of June 1940. Dover, England. Private William Harrison of the 1st Battalion, Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, watches the last evacuation vessels arrive from Dunkirk. Behind him, trucks haul what's left of the British Expeditionary Force's equipment. What's missing tells the real story. Of the 600 anti-tank guns sent to France, only 167 made it home. Ammunition stockpiles stand so low that training regulations forbid firing even a single round. 3 weeks later, German intelligence reports land on Churchill's desk. Invasion barges assembling in French ports. The Wehrmacht, flush from victory, preparing Operation Sea Lion. Britain faces the very real possibility of panzers rolling through English villages by autumn. The mathematics were brutally simple. 27 divisions, that's all Britain could field. Against them, the Germans would bring proven armor doctrine, battle-hardened crews, and tanks the British couldn't kill. During the Battle of France, British anti-tank weapons had proven woefully inadequate. The standard 2-pounder gun barely scratched German armor. Even the newer 6-pounder, rushed into limited service, lacked penetration power against anything heavier than light tanks. Tank crews resorted to desperate measures. Some tried ramming. Others attempted to blind vision ports with smoke. None of it worked consistently. A single German tank could sit at range and methodically destroy an entire British position without receiving meaningful damage. By July 1940, the situation approached catastrophic. The Home Guard numbered over 1.5 million men, mostly armed with rifles. Against armored vehicles, rifles were useless. If German tanks reached British soil, these part-time soldiers would face steel behemoths with no means to stop them. Something had to be improvised, and quickly. The weapon couldn't require months of development or complex manufacturing. It needed to be simple enough for civilians to use, cheap enough to produce in massive quantities, and deadly enough to actually damage a tank. The British Army needed an anti-tank weapon that didn't yet exist, and they needed it before the invasion fleet sailed. In a requisitioned country house near Aylesbury called the Firs, Major Millis Jeffress ran what would become known as Churchill's Toy Shop. Officially designated MIRC, the unit developed weapons for irregular warfare. Since 1938, Jeffress had been investigating what engineers called squash head charges. The concept was elegant. Pack explosive into a container that breaks on impact, spreading the explosive across the target's surface. When it detonates, the focused blast punches through armor plate thicker than conventional weapons could penetrate. The challenge wasn't the explosive. Imperial Chemical Industries had developed Nobel's 823, a nitroglycerin-based compound with additives for stability. Thick as Vaseline, it remains safe enough to transport despite containing 570 grams of one of the world's most volatile explosives. The challenge was making it stick. Jeffress assigned Stuart McCrae, a former magazine editor turned military inventor, to solve the adhesion problem. Early prototypes used bicycle inner tubes filled with plasticine, dipped in rubber solution. Tests against metal bins used to simulate tanks showed dismal results. The prototypes stuck only by chance, if at all. Someone suggested birdlime, an ancient adhesive used to trap birds on tree branches. McCrae obtained a tin labeled only with a large letter K and the word Stockport. No manufacturer name, no other markings. He took the train to Stockport, found a helpful taxi driver, and asked to be taken to any company making adhesives that might use the letter K. The driver took him to K Brothers Limited, manufacturers of household chemicals. Within weeks, K Brothers' chief chemist had solved the problem. Their modified birdlime remained sticky in both scorching North African heat and freezing European winters. It didn't dry out, didn't lose adhesion, and didn't freeze solid. The final design consisted of a glass sphere 9.5 inches long by 4.5 inches in diameter. Inside sat 570 grams of Nobel's 823. The sphere was wrapped in stockinette fabric soaked in birdlime adhesive. A sheet metal casing, formed of 2 spring-loaded hemispheres, protected the sticky surface during transport. A Bakelite handle contained a 5-second fuse and striker mechanism. To use it, the soldier removed the safety pin, releasing the metal casing. This exposed the sticky sphere. A second pin armed the firing mechanism. The soldier then ran directly at the tank and smashed the grenade against it with maximum force, breaking the glass and spreading the nitroglycerin across the hull surface. Releasing the handle activated the fuse. 5 seconds to get clear before the explosive detonated. The Ordnance Board refused to approve it. In trials, the adhesive failed on dusty or muddy tanks. If a soldier wasn't careful, it could stick to his uniform, leaving him holding an armed explosive he couldn't release. The design seemed suicidal. Churchill overruled them. His memo from October 1940 contained just 4 words. Sticky bomb. Make 1 million. Production began at K Brothers Caborough Works in Reddish. Between 1940 and 1943, approximately 2.5 million were manufactured. Priority went to Home Guard units, civilian soldiers who would face the invasion's first wave. Regular Army units received quantities for training, though officially the weapon remained unapproved for military use. By July 1941, 215,000 had been produced. Nearly 90,000 shipped overseas to North Africa, the Middle East, and Greece. Home Guard members took to it despite its flaws. One soldier recalled a training incident where a comrade got the grenade stuck to his trouser leg. A quick-thinking mate stripped the trousers off and threw them clear just before the explosion. The trousers, the soldier noted, were in a bit of a mess afterward, though probably in a mess beforehand too. If you're finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. February 1943. Near the Tunisian town of Thala, the Afrika Korps advances. British and Commonwealth forces, outnumbered and outgunned, faced German armor across desert terrain offering no cover. Several soldiers carry sticky bombs, though officially the weapons weren't approved for regular army use. Officially didn't matter much when tanks appeared over the ridge. The accounts from that engagement record 6 German tanks destroyed by sticky bombs. Soldiers closed to within throwing distance, some running directly at armored vehicles to ensure proper adhesion. The tactic worked because the blast effect remained safe for the bomber provided the handle pointed away from them. The handle shot away from the explosion like a bullet, as Australian Army units discovered when they used the weapons during the Battle of Wau and the Battle of Milne Bay in New Guinea. Allied forces at the Anzio beachhead used them, including the 1st Special Service Force. The French resistance received quantities for sabotage work against German installations. The weapon appeared wherever British influence reached and anti-tank capabilities fell short. What made it effective wasn't sophistication. The penetration measured perhaps 25 millimeters under ideal conditions, enough to breach engine decks and damage tracks, but insufficient against frontal armor. What mattered was psychological impact. Tanks couldn't simply sit at range and dominate. Every soldier became a potential tank killer if he had the courage to close distance. The flaws remained throughout its service life. Mud, dust, or oil on tank surfaces reduced adhesion dramatically. The 5-second fuse meant mishandling proved lethal. The need to run directly at tanks required courage bordering on madness. Later, more effective weapons replaced it. The Piat introduced in 1942 offered better range and penetration. By 1943, the sticky bomb was already obsolete. But between July 1940 and the Piat's deployment, it represented Britain's only man-portable anti-tank capability that could be mass-produced quickly enough to matter. That window, those crucial months when invasion seemed imminent and conventional weapons didn't exist, belonged to the sticky bomb. 4th of June, 1940. Private Harrison stands guard near Dover, watching for invasion barges that could appear any day. He carries a rifle, 10 rounds of ammunition, and nothing to stop a tank if one appears. By December, he'll carry 3 sticky bombs. Glass spheres full of nitroglycerin, coated in bird-trapping glue, protected by sheet metal casing. Ridiculous, dangerous, and desperate. But desperate was what Britain had. A country house in Buckinghamshire, a chemical company in Stockport, and the willingness to send soldiers running at tanks with explosive-filled glass spheres. That was the British trick. Not elegant engineering or superior technology, just modified birdlime, stabilized nitroglycerin, and ordinary men who would sprint towards 60 tons of armor if that's what survival required. In the end, that proved to be enough.